Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar, Voices That Move Us, Spotlight on the Advocast, Behind Every Employer, and Empowered Podcasts. So our presenters today are myself, Sara Haghighi from Pima Community College, Anson Green of Tyson Foods, Jeff Abramowitz from PD Green Program, and Hector Martinez, State Director of Adult Education in Kansas. Each person will be introducing themselves more fully as we get to each individual podcast. But we're so excited to have, even though I mentioned three podcasts, you probably know that there's actually a fourth that happens during AEFL week, the Rise and Shine podcast, which we'll also be highlighting toward the end of today's webinar. So I'll lead us in by introducing COABE's Advocast Adult Education podcast, and I'll tell you a bit more about it in just a minute. But first, I wanted to highlight some key numbers that are of importance in adult education right now. And we're going to play a little bit of a fun game here where you're going to think, probably in your head and not in the chat, but it doesn't matter to me, what this number means to us in adult education. $729 million, and you won't have to think about it too long because this is the answer here. It is the amount of federal funding the State Appropriations Committee has approved for federal fiscal year 26, which, by the way, would mean our program year 27. All right. Our next, quite a difference, $0. Apart from being the amount of money in my bank account when I started teaching, this is here meant to be the amount of federal funding the House Appropriations Committee approved for federal fiscal year 26. Quite a big difference from that last number of 736 million. I'll tie all these together in a moment. Next, 26,000. And in fact, I probably should have updated this because it's now probably closer to 27,000. If you guessed that this is the number of emails sent to members of Congress since July 1st of this year through COABE's 3-click software, you would be correct. So highlighting here the vital importance of advocacy, and that's really the heart of what COABE's Advocast podcast focuses on, is contextualizing advocacy, breaking it down into smaller pieces. And we like to do that by highlighting different guests. And so these numbers relate to kind of a pool of possible guests that we have. 101. And if you're like me, your first thought may have been Dalmatians, but it is not. It is the local number, the number of advocates in our local initiative, which is lifting our communities through advocacy and leadership. It's focused on that grassroots local advocacy that you and your program can engage in within your community to help increase that voice of adult education, help key leaders in your area understand how adult education enhances, empowers, and creates a strong community. And I can share more about that local initiative in the chat in just a bit. 332. I just updated this one this morning because this is our number of COABE student ambassadors who are sharing the impact of adult education through their stories. And we have ambassadors in almost every single state in the United States. We're looking at you, Montana. We need someone from Montana. And last but certainly not least, 177. This is the current number of our state advocates for adult education fellows to date who are leading change in their states. That SAFE fellowship started back in 2021. That's where I had the honor of meeting a couple of our panelists today, Sara Haghighi and Jeff Abramowitz. And that's actually where the COABE Advocast originated. It originated through that SAFE fellowship. And I was so honored to be able to start that podcast with Sara Haghighi. And if you're wondering, well, where is Sara? Well, Sara, because of how incredible she was with the Advocast, was asked to, yeah, thanks, Sara, you can come on, was asked to join the Empowered podcast to help get started with the student section. And if you recall, in our first couple seasons of the Advocast, we really highlighted a voice from the field who was engaging in advocacy. And then we would also have a learner come on to share their story. That created a pretty long episode, and it just made sense to split those two apart and have the advocacy as one podcast and the student voices as a separate podcast. Sara, if you want to say a couple words about that, the beginning of the Advocast.
Yeah, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Erin, for starting us today. And what an honor to be part of the first cohort of SAFE to start this great initiative that now we have 177 members of them. And we all thought that we were doing advocacy. Yes, we did that, and we did even more. And that's how Advocast started. The partnerships, the relationships, the networks helped us to get inspired. And then Erin and I started Advocast. And we always wanted to showcase our student success stories because that's why we do what we do. And then eventually we decided that, you know what, students deserve a separate podcast for themselves. So that's why we separated Advocast from Empowered by just letting Advocast focus on state associations and the great work that they're doing, and Empowered to be a podcast to showcase student success stories.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Sara and I are both avid listeners of podcasts, and when we were in our fellowship and really leaning into advocacy, we had both been searching for advocacy podcasts that would help us strengthen our skills. And we couldn't really find anything that existed, and certainly not within the realm of education and the type of advocacy that we do. And we said, well, if there's a need, let's fill that need. And so yeah, Advocast is now in its third year, and I'm going it solo, and I miss Sara on every episode, but I also really love getting to to tune into her podcast because yes, students deserve their own space. And it is safe to say there's overlap uh, between all of our podcasts because advocacy includes everyone within the adult education space. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of the most recent episodes. You're getting a spoiler because you're getting to see what the next one is, even though it hasn't been released. But the most recent one that was released was episode 19, From Noise to Noticed, Crafting Messages That Move Policy, really focused on where to begin in advocacy, how to create that message. And I was joined by our friends at Penn Hill Group, a public policy firm, to really talk about what legislative offices want to hear and what they don't, and how to craft our message to really get across, which, if you haven't listened yet, is a perfect listen for AEFL week. And then our upcoming episode, which has already been filmed, just waiting in the sidelines until it's ready to come out. But we have an episode focus where I was able to speak with Cheyenne Ross, who is an adult learner who became a COABE student ambassador when she attended our Students as Leaders Summit in Dallas, Texas. here you can see she had a meeting with U.S. Senator Mark Kelly. She actually got to meet him again yesterday. Yes, no, 2 days ago at our Flood the Hill event in Washington, D.C. that she attended. And so she shares her story about what advocacy looks like for a former adult learner. That process of feeling empowered to share her story, what it felt like preparing for that afterward, and what she's doing now. And so I highly encourage you, if you haven't listened, the start with episode 19 because that's what's out right now. And then you can go back in time, enjoy all of the podcasts with Sara in it as well. And these episodes are now around 20 to 25 minutes. So yeah, no matter where you are on your advocacy journey, you'll get something out of the Advocast. So I will go ahead now and turn it over to our next podcast host for the Behind Every Employer podcast. I'll turn it over to my friend, Jeff Abramowitz.
Hey everybody, rise and shine, rise and shine. Oh wait, wrong podcast. Sorry, wrong webinar. Um, Hi, my name is Jeff Abramowitz, and along with Anson Green, we are really privileged to bring you the Behind Every Employer podcast. And I'm not sure that Anson was able to get on today, but he is definitely my partner in crime. And before we talk about the podcast, I want to give you a little bit of data. So Erin, you want to hit the next slide? There you go. 43 million. That's a big number, but over 43 million adults lack basic English literacy skills needed for economic self-sufficiency. And that's an important number when we talk about the need in our country to get not only people educated and smarter, but back into the workforce. And adult basic English literacy skills are just so important in our country, but it's only one small piece of the puzzle. We can go to the next one. I'll give you a few more pieces of data. One is 28%. So 28% of U.S. adults score at or below literacy level one. Low literacy could be dragging the economy down in and of itself. But the truth and the reality is that $2.2 trillion is lost in our gross national product every year as a result of low literacy skills across the country. And just getting back from Washington, D.C., celebrating Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, the one thing we heard over and over again from legislators in Capitol Hill was the importance of linking adult education into the workforce, and that being one of the keys to helping our economy and driving our economy into the future. One more, Erin. I think we have one more data slide, which is 1.26 million adults participate in adult education programs, including workforce readiness, digital literacy skills, credentials, and more. And that's just a huge number when you think about the number of people impacted by adult literacy and adult education programming in our country. And then we have 60%, nearly 60% of approximately 60% of American workers who report wanting to upgrade their skills to get ahead in their careers. And I think the big word there is careers, and the reality that more and more people in the country, they want to get to that next level. That entry level job just doesn't cut it anymore, that we need to be doing more to help people, even once they get the job, to advance, to move up that career ladder. And I think that was the last data slide, maybe, I think. Um,
Yes,
so
it
we
was.
There you go. I want to talk to a little bit about the Behind Every Employer podcast with which Anson and I do, and it is definitely a labor of love that we bring it. But we've been doing this for a few years, and the reality is that just now the rest of the world is catching up with us. See, because Anson and I have been talking about the connection between education and employment for the longest time, and it's been part of COABE's portfolio, but through the Behind Every Employer portal for quite some time. Our podcast really focuses on that integration between education and workforce development. And we've had so many great guests on the show from all different agencies. Recently, we taped an episode with the Trellis Foundation and the Aspen Institute that is doing a wonderful program in Texas that's getting people into the nursing field. We recently also had Skills USA on, and Shel Travis was on talking about all the great work that's being done at Skills USA. It goes on and on. If you want to be a guest on the Behind Every Employer podcast, I will put my contact information in the chat box before the end of this webinar. And I hope that you'll reach out to me and say, Jeff, we've got a great story to tell. It's about education and workforce development and getting employers engaged. And that's really, those are the voices that we want to hear and the stories that we want to look to. So that's the Behind Every Employer podcast. We come on at least once a month. Sometimes when we have something special, we'll do a special episode, but that's pretty much how we run. Erin?
Thank you. I'm now going to turn it over to Sara Haghighi and Hector Martinez to discuss the Empowered podcast.
Thank you. Hello again, everyone. So my name is Sara Haghighi. I'm an instructional manager working in Pima Community College down in Tucson, Arizona. And I was honored to be one of the people who attended the first cohort of SAFE. And now I'm here co-hosting Empowered. And we talked a little bit earlier how we got inspired to start a podcast showcasing our students so they can have their own moment and space. But I'm not doing it alone. I'm doing it with Hector Martinez and Joyce Orienton. Hector is in Kansas and Joyce is in Delaware. So it's a dance between the three states whenever, and the time zones, every time that we get together and talk and when we meet with the students. And a fun fact about our podcast is that all of us are former adult learners, and that's why we feel that it is a good space for people like us to showcase all the successes that all of us adult educators have been putting into work and showcase them. Erin, could you please go to the next slide? Thank you. So, you know that in adult education, we focus on a population that is extremely challenging to reach. We have all those people who are single parents, they are long-term unemployed. They are low-income adults or ex-offenders, or they are displaced homemakers, or they are language learners, or immigrants and refugees who came here. People with disability, learning disabilities are the ones that we are serving. And we know that low-income adults are 2 times more likely to be unemployed, 3 times more likely to be in poverty, and 4 times more likely to be in poor health, 8 times more likely to be incarcerated. There is no doubt that educating adults creates stronger communities, and we have done it. And we always say that the work that we do, it's great to show that data, but also that data is not enough. We need to humanize that data. We have to bring those faces to see that these numbers, there are people behind these numbers. And we want to showcase what even research shows, that when our nation invests in adult education, outcomes improve. On average, the earning of an individual with a high school diploma or its equivalents are 27% higher than those without a high school diploma. And we see 43% reduction in recidivism recidivism rate when an individual gets their high school diploma. And we've experienced all of those things, and also research is there to show that earnings increase and unemployment rate decrease with adult education and educational attainment. All of this to say that what we do, there are numbers that you can always go to COABE's website and get your state's fact sheets. But also, we want to put the faces behind those numbers. You have students, it's great to bring them on the podcast so they can share what work you've done to be able to accomplish this number. Now that it's a guessing game, I'm going to ask you to guess how many of those. So, Jeff earlier mentioned that there are 1.26 million adult learners, but how many of them do you think are COABE members, or how many of them COABE is serving? We're going to go to the next slide so you can see the number. 3.2 million of those adults that COABE is serving by the programs that you're serving. I'm going to bring Hector, my partner in crime, and also a great friend, to talk a little bit about EmpowerED and the work that we do.
Thank you, Sara. And as you see, thank you, everybody, and good afternoon in some of the parts of the states. Good morning in some parts of the states. As you see, Sara is a star already on the podcast, with being from the beginning. Now she is being on the star, and that's why we partner on empowering students in our podcast. And I just wanted to mention that we like to have more of your stories, of your student stories, because you are doing that. We need to be in the same spirit that adult education provides opportunities for those learners who didn't succeed in the traditional setting for school for X, Y reason. We don't want to know the reason. We are here to help those students succeed. And that's what we want to empower. We want to make sure and emphasize that education is not about age. Let's remove that age out of the equation, but let's talk about the timing, the resilience, and the courage to do it. Because once you cross the door, and that's where we want to empower every single student in our centers, when they cross that door, they're ready to be successful. And they have you in their side to make that happen. Then with your work is not going to happen. Then in advance, thank you for doing what you're doing. I can testify, Sara, and everybody on the podcast, that the students that we had at the Hill this week, they were energetic. They have the most beautiful experience. They have the opportunity to visit with senators, representatives, and they testify from themselves that there are another person, and they are doing what they can in their side to continue with adult education. And that's what we want to do. We want to empower them. We want to empower the students. But at the same time, we want to empower you. Then at some point, let's bring you as a practitioner, as a teacher, as a navigator, as director. Let's empower you to do what you're doing. Thank you very much for being here. And we continue with some numbers from Sara, but this is empower. Let's empower everybody and remove barriers to continue the success.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. I get empowered by hearing students, students' stories. I get energized. It's not good timing in our line of work with everything that we hear. Erin shared the number of the fundings that we are hoping to get and how much we are getting paid the programs are getting paid right now. So it's not easy time, but we need that energy. And EmpowerED is there to bring that energy to all of us. All of us, we have students that we know what great work they're doing, and we want to help them, open another door for them to jump in and get leadership skills, the skills that they will need for their future leadership purposes. We already help them with all the work skills that they need to have in order to be employed and go up the ladder in their job and become a supervisor and get higher positions in the work that they do. But also there are some leaderships that come from advocacy work that I'm sure a lot of students are interested in that if they know how to access those. So COABE provides a lot of opportunities for our students to participate. One of them is to attend Student Leadership Summit. That is a great opportunity for learners to attend our Student Leadership Summit at the conference. And also, if you have a student, it's always good to nominate them for Student of the Year. And you always want your students to get those recognitions, and what's the best way to nominate them for becoming Student of the Year. And also, students could join Ambassador Program, which is a great program, empowers students to be strong and knowledgeable enough to go to DC, to talk to their state legislators and be able to advocate for themselves and for the community that helped them get to that point. So I highly encourage all of you to nominate your students for Ambassador Program. And also, EmpowerED is there to share the voice of them. So nominate your students to come and be featured in our podcast. If we have 3.2 million adult learners, so we want to get all of their voices be featured in our podcast. It's the three of us, and if we have to do 2 podcasts per day or more, we will do that because we know how important it is to hear from our students. Back at you, Erin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sara and Hector. And I am so excited by this new podcast. And absolutely feel free to reach out to anybody at COABE as well if you're interested in being a guest on any of these podcasts. I know Jeff has put his information into the chat, but if you're ever confused, don't know where to go, you can always email any of us at COABE and we'll be sure to put you into contact with the hosts of the podcast that best fits your area of expertise or what it is that you want to share. And of course, all of our adult learners, we would love to have featured on the EmpowerED podcast because I have never heard a learner story that has not been inspiring. And as I said, we have that secret, not so secret, fourth podcast, which comes around at a special time of year during AEFL week. And Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, the Rise and Shine podcast, it's been going on. Hopefully some of you have gotten to see it. If you haven't yet, tomorrow it's not too late. We'll be sharing out some of the prior episodes too. But each day this week in Washington, we've been starting the day off with Rise and Shine and talking about Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. We've had just some remarkable guests this week that have been telling us about the great work they're doing, sharing their stories. We started Monday off with Jackie Aguilera at Houston Area Adult Literacy Collective, and Joel Floyd was on, who is doing some great work in Chasen College. Ted Kroll was on, the president of Michigan Adult Community College and Alternative Education Association, and Irene Ramos from Tally, the Tally vice president in Texas. On Tuesday, we had some more great guests on with Robert Guzman and Michael Bartlett and Jeff Arnott were on. And then Wednesday, yesterday, we had Delia Watley was on, and from the program director from Irving ISD in Texas. And just some amazing guests all day. Christy Johnson was on and Sarah Quick was on. And then tomorrow, and we also had Adam Wynn on, who was president of Wyoming Lifelong Learning Association, who brought on one of his students, Jessica Leggett, who talked about her work as a student ambassador. And we love that. And then today we had Kathy Tyler on, who's just amazing from NCCER, and Kathy Tracy Olson was on from Illinois. Erin Landry was on. Julie Knack, our own from COABE, was on. We've had some tremendous guests on. It's been a lot of fun. Hearing their stories and what's driving them to do the good work that they're doing, and the advocacy that's taking place across the country. So it's not too late. If you want to join us tomorrow, it's 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock sharp for our last round of guests that will be on, and looking forward to tomorrow. Danielle Cox is going to be on tomorrow, Kristen Hempel, Hector Martinez, our own Hector, is going to be on tomorrow as well. So join us tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and we're going to be winding down Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. And thanks for supporting the podcast.
Thanks, Jeff. That is a long list of incredible guests. And yeah, we absolutely will be posting all of um, those recorded episodes as well, so that if you did miss any, I know our friends on the East Coast, especially those in Hawaii and Alaska, 9 a.m. Eastern is pretty early your time. So you will be able to go back and watch those at a time that works better for you. So again, we would welcome you to listen in to any or hopefully all of our podcasts. And again, there is overlap between all of them, because effective advocacy is about having voices from employers and our adult learners. And and obviously all of these work together. So again, please reach out if you are interested in being a guest on any of our podcasts. I did want to close us out today with some further information for you. So, especially as we talk about amplifying our adult learner voices, this is Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, and so we are really shining a spotlight on our adult learners. If you have an adult learner who wants to share their success story, and they want to be on that Empowered podcast, that first step would be submitting their story, like for them to type it out, submit it to our Educate and Elevate website, and then the host would be able to reach out to them and start scheduling for a podcast interview. Also wanted to share that adult learner memberships to COABE are completely free. And when an adult learner becomes a COABE member, they're able to become a member of our Adult Learner Mighty Networks group, where they can network with adult learners from across the country. They can access funding through the Educate and Elevate Foundation. We have an SOS grant that provides up to $1,000 for an adult learner who has some kind of financial barrier to being able to get to class. Maybe it means that their car broke down and they don't have the funding to get it fixed. They don't have the funding to have alternative transportation to get to class. They can absolutely apply for that SOS grant. We review them very quickly and get that financial support to them very quickly, because again, we understand these are for emergency situations. They also get a free year of life insurance at a $60,000 value. And we walk them through how to get that free life insurance for the year. And as Sara had mentioned, they can also be nominated for our Outstanding Adult Learner of the Year award, which not only gets them a $2,000 check, but like an all expense paid trip to that upcoming COABE conference. So our next conference will be in Indianapolis. We'll get them the hotel room. We'll feed them. They will be the VIP. Our previous outstanding adult learners of the year have always said, "Well, people stop me to take pictures with me, like I'm super important." And absolutely, they are super important. They are our VIPs. And then we also offer free registration to our COABE National Conference for any of our adult learner members. We've also mentioned a couple times about our COABE Student Ambassador Program. I know that Sara mentioned it because they've had some ambassadors on the Empowered podcast. Um, Jeff mentioned it because just recently, Jessica from Wyoming, who I trained as an ambassador and has an absolutely incredible story. Um, I got to meet her recently. We also had a number of our student ambassadors who came to DC, as Hector said, and were prepared to share their stories. So if you have an adult learner who's interested in becoming an ambassador, you can use this QR code, share it with them so that they can complete it. And I am now offering an ambassador training every month on Zoom. Just yesterday, we did an ambassador training and we got 7 new ambassadors from across the country. I'll be doing that once a month going forward, so that if you don't have an entire cohort of individuals who are ready to become ambassadors, they can join and take that off of your plate. We'll do the entire training. Um, so this is the story of Destiny Great, who became an ambassador at our COABE conference. And she got to be part of Oklahoma's first ever Capitol Day and reflected on it. And it was absolutely incredible. I mean, she's incredible. So please, if you have any questions about the ambassador training, feel free to let me know. I'll reach out to you. And I'm also more than happy if you have adult learners with questions, you can connect them directly with me as well. I'll share my information in the chat momentarily. And of course, follow us on our social media platforms. We are on Instagram. That's primarily where we do messaging for our adult learners. Um, We are on TikTok, believe it or not. We now have a TikTok content creator. So if you are somebody on that platform, please check us out. And of course, on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. I know that AEFL week is winding down, but it is never too late to advocate. So there are fantastic resources on our AEFL week webpage that can be used all year round for your advocacy efforts. So please visit there, use our 3-click software to send an email to your members of Congress. Now is a really pivotal time because, as we mentioned, the House is saying $0. The Senate is saying level funding. They need to negotiate what that final number will be. So please use that 3-click software to send those emails. We visited offices all day on Tuesday, but continuing to flood their emails asking for support for adult education is incredibly important. If you would like additional resources, please visit the COABE webpage. You can find that here. And I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us here today. Again, everybody has something to share. Everybody has a story, has insight. Please feel free to, again, email us if you would like to be on the podcast, or if you know somebody who would make a fantastic guest, please encourage them to join us. Thank you again to all of our fantastic panelists who um, take their time and their passion and to record these podcasts, to be part of COABE's incredible um, you know, uh, lineup of podcasts available. And if you're somebody who says, I don't really listen to podcasts, I'm more of a YouTube person. Well, I've got great news for you. You can actually watch all of our podcasts on YouTube. So if you would like to actually see the guests and see the way they're responding to these questions, check out COABE on YouTube, and you'll be able to find playlists of each of our different podcasts. Thank you so much again, and have a wonderful adult education and family literacy week.